How's everyone doing?
Hi.
It's good to see you, Amol, Jaya, and Brad. This is so exciting.
Likewise, Vani.
Good to see you, all of you guys.
Yep.
So let's, while we wait for a couple of people more to join in, they might join us, but I think we should just start to be on time. So I've got a couple of questions already in the chat window, so I'm just going to kind of take it from there. Can we do like self-introductions while we do that? So, Jaya, would you like to go first and do a little introduction about yourself, please?
Yes. My name is, good evening, my name is Jay Kumar. I'm the CEO of a company called Toons Media Group. We started 2 decades back from a remote town in Kerala called Trivandrum, and over a period of time, we've grown into a more global studio. We have production base in India, New Zealand, Spain, Ireland, and Turkey, where we produce CGI and 2D animation and stop motion as well. We also have live action production facility. In addition to that, we distribute content worldwide. We also have a Toons Media Networks, which is a kids and family channels and licensing and merchandising. Thank you.
Jaya, what exactly do you do with Toons?
So I'm the Chief Executive Officer. So I run the company.
All right. Brad.
Yeah. Thanks, Vani. I'm pretty much just a small town boy from Canada who loves animation, and I'm very passionate about this art form, VFX, and I'm constantly learning. I technically have my own studio called Brad Willis Studios, but I primarily work for larger companies such as currently Industrial Light and Magic. I've worked on many couple video games, a bunch of movies. My IMDb is up there online, and basically I just play at work, have fun, and look forward to what this industry can provide moving forward. And just with the technology age and kind of where we're headed, especially with the streaming services like Netflix and Disney Plus and everything globally kind of blowing up, especially during these tough times, it's pretty exciting to see where we're headed.
Thank you, Brad. Amog?
Yes. So I've started, as an animator in this industry, as a 2D animation animator in this industry. So by around first 5 to 6 years, I was working as a 2D animator. Then I moved to the CG world. Since then, I mostly have worked with high-end movies and in CG. But then the migration happened with VFX as well, and I'm looking more towards it's a combination of CG and VFX most of the time. But that is what is keeping me going. That every single domain has its own way of functioning, and you gain a lot of knowledge. Right now I'm working with Redefine as an HOD of animation department, and it's been great. So look forward to meeting all you guys, and here we are.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Brad. That's very sweet of you. Hello, everyone. I'm currently, it's morning for me. I'm in New York, and I am a writer, creator, director with Dancing Atoms. It's a small boutique development studio based in Los Angeles, Mumbai, and UK. We have a very, very tight, small crew of 20-25 people. We really focused only on storytelling and creating stories. Our goal basically is to bring some of the most beautiful stories from India and bridge them to the international, just kind of get them to be visible and get them to be global. So that's basically what I do. I'm also an Unreal mentor currently, and I help with the fellowship, and I do a lot of story consultations and stuff like that. So that's my gig. And so let's just, while we wait for a moderator to show up, let's just talk a little bit about what makes you guys happy. In the IP stuff, more specific, what makes you happy in the, wherever you are in life, like in terms of IP creation, what kind of IP makes you happy?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, obviously the story comes first, but the way IP generally in India, it's more about it's a kids show, and but there are these stories which still keeps you engaged. So that is something which makes me happy when I see something which is at times, even if it's a unique idea which may not have that commercial undertone to it, but still it it is being presented, and there are certain platforms who would like to go ahead with it. That rarely happens, but that actually makes me happy, where we are going beyond what we actually know, more than a kid show. But and I guess now it is growing many folds is what I feel, and that really makes me excited.
To be honest, personally, what makes me happy is more for a personal reason, because when I started out, I was in a lot of VFX TV commercials and stuff, and selling chocolate bars and stuff like that. And I was actually a little bit down on myself, because I was like, why am I doing this? Like, where's my passion? Why did I get into animation? And I was actually considering changing careers, but then my 1-year-old son would come downstairs every morning and point up to the TV and say ball movie. And it was everyone's hero baseball movie, which was my very first film that I worked on. And it was his favorite single movie every single day to watch. And that's what makes me happy, and that's what makes me passionate about what I do. And that's why I still do it. And just seeing the characters come to life on screen is so fun, taking your kids to the movies and squeezing their hands when your acting shots are on the screen. So that's why I do what I do. But I agree 100% that it's all about the story. There's so many internal directors and creators that we work with that are just our co-workers each and every day that have brilliant ideas. And I think that companies will grow exponentially in the future if we truly recognize these internal artists and give them the platform to creatively show what they're capable of.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah, me, I'm not an artist, so that is the reason why I thought Amog and Brandon, Wani, you finish your stuff. So for me, I think, so for us, I think, as you know, we have done more than 100 projects so far, and as you know, a television series is at least in a minimum 2-year, hustle, right? So, and almost every project is have issues, issues in the sense that I'm not talking about issues, but there's a lot of those kind of things. But at the end, you see all these things coming together, and when you really see the final product, right, that is what really make you happy, because that at that moment you forget all of the toils you made, all of the even financial losses sometimes, right? All that kind of stuff you've done. But I think all of those kind of things will be forgotten at that moment. And if those shows are getting a positive audience reaction and getting and making money, we are doubly happy.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I was waiting for you to say that double money. Because that's what takes us. And
that's my business hat speaking.
I totally respect that. Like today, yeah. I totally respect that. Maybe 20 years ago, I didn't, as much. Yeah. But I
Yes.
think a lot of what you bring, Jaya, which I admire you, by the way, if you know that, or if you don't know that, is business. You know, when we really talk about IP, there's definitely a certain kind of a passion, but there's also the desire to make money so that you can
Yeah.
continue to make the things that you like. You know, so we
Yes.
really need that. So for me personally, what makes me happy is rewriting, you know, like kind of jumping in and writing my story and then looking at it and saying, what can I do better with this? How can I polish it? And as much as I hate it, I think I've come to realize that development is really, really, really about dropping your ego and just really focusing on polishing your project, because you might have a brilliant idea, you might think I have a brilliant idea, but as you go through development you realize that maybe that idea will come back later, but you have to reiterate and you have to kind of let go and follow that process. And I totally enjoy that. And I'm beginning to understand and get happier about that. Earlier, I was like, no, 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 I'm so rigid. This is how it has to be. Versus, I'm beginning to understand that. So that makes me happy. The second thing that absolutely makes me happy is, of course, money, because money is tells you what you're worth, you know, tells you your self-worth, tells you what your company is worth, what your project is worth. And I think that's a very key important factor of kind of bridging the gap between and making IP really stands on intellectual property. The reason we have intellectual property is really because we believe that we can sustain ourselves creating, you know, and
Yeah.
that's a very important takeaway for me is I am not just going and doing something. I'm doing something that I love that'll sustain me and sustain my company, and that's what would make me very happy. Going into the next thing, um, I do want to kind of call the elephant in the room, as they say. I know that Indian IP, very few have traveled to the world.
Yeah.
Um, how is that changing? You know, we don't need to talk about the past as much, but what does the future look like, and what should the do's and don'ts be for the future of Indian IP? It's a selfish question for myself.
Well, while everyone's thinking about that question, I just wanted to hop back to what Manny was talking about with regards to being so rigid in kind of your story mindset. Literally, I think that any great kind of director cannot only be focused on what their best idea is, but truly being able to sponge off of the best ideas of all the creative people around you and in a room. And I just really appreciate what you said there, because that is a huge part about it. But you're completely right that we have to be sustainable, right? So it's not just like we're an artist going out there do whatever we want. You got to be able to make money, because at the end of the day, it is a money making business. So yeah.
Thank you. Vani, I think we were an early movers in the IPs in India. We actually created the first television series, animated television series in India called Tenali Raman.
Yeah.
It was way back in 2002.
Yeah.
So my takeaway. I mean, those days, 2002, there was only Cartoon Network as a kids channel in India. Nobody even dared to produce anything. And those days, I think we probably invested around 6 crores into that, kind of project. Probably we haven't got back more than 25 lakhs, because Cartoon Network, they were used to basically dub their American, catalog, and then they were exposing to the Indian kids. One good thing was, it was very well accepted by the Indian audience, and that from that perspective, it was very, even today, if I really look at the Indian content, I think that basically even today it stands out in terms of quality and in terms of kind of delivery. Um, I think my point is that there are you need to decide which audience you wanted to tell your stories to, right? So for Tenali Raman, it's a folklore, and the the plot, the story, the culture, everything is very Indian. I don't think it is a story for international audience. So those kinds of stories, I think it is better to be told for the Indian audience, and I think that is the best way. Uh, but there are stories which obviously you will be able to tell for a more wider audience. Now I'll tell you, an example from our side. We did a show with Nickelodeon, a local show called Pakadam Pakadai. It was just a chase comedy, and this chase comedy, and when we really did it, and we're still running in Nickelodeon. We are currently doing 700th episode. So it has continued for 7-8 seasons. It's a very successful show for them. What we have done is we have kind of repurposed the same show for international audience, changed the name to Rat-a-Tat, and then added a little bit of a bells and whistles and made it an international show. And I wanted to tell that we probably made 10 times money from India compared to what we get in India from internationally. So we have a YouTube channel called Cho Tunes, and that is a number one channel in the world for slapstick comedy, and we get around 500 million views, and there is around 18, 11, 12 million subscribers on that particular channel. That channel is initially totally driven by this product, right? So this was originally created for India, but we were able to take it to the international audience. I think a couple of problems. I believe the animation IP business in India is still at very nascent stages.
Yeah.
I don't think we have storytellers who basically understand the global storytelling. The way the Western storytelling happens and the themes they select. If you really take, for example, a Lion King or um, a Finding Nemo, if you really analyze deep, it's very simple theme. It's a love between father and a son in both these kind of things. And the love between the father and the son is a very common theme which any nationality can relate to. Indian or Chinese or Korean or any nationality, I love my child. It's the same in any nationality. So when you really build a story based on such universal theme, then it transcends barriers, it transcends cultures, and of course the writing part also. So I think our stories are very complex, right? 100 people in Kaurava, 105 people in Pandava, very intricate and complex stories. I'm not saying that those stories are bad or anything. Of course, those stories can also be told, but it need to be told in a certain way so that the Western audience understand. And that understanding is, our audience is very different. And if you tell the way, because our audience understand Ramayana, they understand Mahabharata, they know they will immediately relate to it. A Western audience will not. So if you wanted them to be immersed into your story, then you need to basically tell the story in their way or the way in which they understand. And I believe that is the problem, and it is mostly on the storytelling and scripting. And in terms of the artistry and technicalities, I don't think we have any problem. I think, our artists are equal or better to any other place. Of course, America and those Western countries have a very long history. Tom and Jerry is 70 years old. So our industry is just 20 years old. So we definitely is far behind from other people. But I believe, if we can really improve storytelling and if we bring in, good international writers who basically able to help our people to understand global storytelling, we will be able to improve drastically. I think, Wani, you are muted.
Amog has to say something, right?
Yeah, I mean, on this particular point, I agree to what Kumar said, and there is a lot of insight. Obviously, they have ventured into IP, and the experience always gives you quite a bit of an idea that what we could improve on when we jump into the next one, or how we can run the business. Because yes, I totally agree, the business is a major part of it. In our field, it starts with the creativity or the story. My thing is that irrespective of where you base, you need to be very true to the concept or the story. That forget about whether it is international or it is for an Indian market. You just stay true to the story. That is what Then the entire process of creativity or innovativeness, imagination starts, and then we are completely away from how it will sell, how it will do. It is just about putting your life into the character. What even Brad was talking about, being passionate. We are passionate because we get these characters to life. People relate to it. It is not even live action. In CG world, it is something which is it's just a model. We put rig controls and all those technicalities and make it alive. But when in story, it is the core of every, be it IP, movie, it is the core of it. When we are honest about it, it generally goes through. There are a lot of things where we have seen globally, and Indian content has been appreciated globally, and the Western content is equally received in India as well. So maybe, how we can make it global, that could be a part once the story or the script has been done. And then we can think about the business. Hey, man, this is really a solid content. Maybe we should expand it in a way, and then there is a plan. But to make that particular story or that IP, successful, you have to go through the grind. If it is a TV content, you probably have to go through a grind of certain episodes, or maybe months. Then probably you will see the results. That constant probably hammering is not the word, but that when people, it will in TV, like since we are from the 90s, like in the 90s when the IP started hitting on TV. Then eventually we started when the world opened up. There were a lot of other contents which people get to see. The accessibility improved. Now there is an OTT, but it is a constant progression. There are still areas which I feel as a global market, we are yet not tapping into it. Maybe it could be Ramayana, Mahabharata, but even a single character could have his own individual story. That is the beauty of it. But you just have to be very honest about it without even thinking whether it is acceptable or not. How it will get you pour your heart out to it. You put it across. You probably will get feedback. When we obviously have to put it across to the right people, because it still is eventually going to be a business idea, and that is a fact. So, as long as we are doing that, the process is already there. It is just that how we are going to explore that. There we have to take certain chances, risks. Maybe the channel should be forthcoming and not only think about this may not work. No, there is no hero. You should add hero and villain. We may be bigger than that, but we have to take certain chances to to open up furthermore, so that even the writers, even the directors, the creators will think in a different way. I don't mean you just have to be totally unique. It could be the story could be pretty simple, but it still could have its own uniqueness in presentation, is what I feel.
Thank you. For me, I think one of the biggest challenges that I have seen in the past is a certain kind of understanding of what it takes to build an IP. In the past, there is no understanding. Like there is like, oh, I have an idea and I'm going to go with it. But really, the education behind IP doesn't really exist. Like what Jaya was mentioning earlier, that we are not educated. And so when we're not educated, we cannot be prepared to go forward. And so we are constantly kind of stuck in some kind of a loop, whether it's in the loop of figuring out storytelling or in the loop of legalities and IP and where it can take us and where, what are the loopholes of it. So for me, when, having run really big studios like Rhythm and Hues and having worked at DreamWorks and stuff like that, coming back and taking this rebirth, like I call for myself, and saying, no, I'm a creator and I'm going to go and tell my stories. I have a voice. And really, the thing that I kind of did was to go and knock on doors and say, I don't know anything. Can you please tell me how to do this? Not because, I mean, there's tons of information on the internet, but a conversation with Jaya would change my life. In the sense, at least he'll give me those gems of wisdom to say, hey, you know what? You want to make an IP? Great. These are the things from a business side that I need you to think about. From a legal side, these are the things that you need to think about. From a legal side, from a character designing side, these are the things that you need to uniquely design for your character design. From a writing side, so I feel like IP is the universe, and I personally, for myself, I'm still learning, I'm still understanding, I'm still absorbing, and I feel like there's a lack of sharing in the Indian industry. Personally for me, is we don't share what is it that we have learned. But now when I travel and I'm in New York or in Los Angeles or in UK, wherever I go, there are these conferences. You just even go there and spend a couple of hours and you're like flooded with information. You're like, oh my God, I've become richer with information and knowledge that I didn't have if I didn't attend this conference, because I'm seeing how long it takes to make IP. And so IP creation needs a lot of love, a lot of patience, a lot of nurturing, and being kind to yourself, because there's nothing you can do, because it'll happen when it needs to happen. So for me, I think those are my takeaways in terms of the past and the future. Let's talk a little bit about that. Is where do you think, given this OTT platforms have sprung up, like amazing. There is so much content and so much specific content that people are absorbing. If someone wants to watch a horror animation, there is a place for that today. If someone wants to watch anime, there's a place for that. If someone wants to watch romance animation, there is something over there for that. Earlier, it was really animation or IP was always for children, or at least I feel like, now it is with Mitchell and Mitchells, or Love, Death and Robots. There's so many variables that we are being bombarded that nobody would have greenlit that if I wrote that and said, here is a project that I want you to do. So can you talk about how exciting, number one, and we'll keep it short because we have another 15 minutes. So how exciting, and then and what are the do's and don'ts? If we can quickly talk a little bit about that.
Hey, Danny, while the other guys think about that question, I'm just going to hop back real quick. I just have one last thought. This is the joy of an open discussion, right?
Absolutely. Go for it.
What we were talking about before really made me feel that at the essence, before we know what market we're really shooting for with whatever IP we're creating, and I think this is what has made Pixar kind of what Pixar is, or DreamWorks, or all these large, really heartfelt, even Rhythm and Hues, studios around the world, just where it's all about people. And Jaya touched on this, where it's about the father-love, connection that they have. And essentially, we're all just people around the world, and we're all just here on Earth, loving each other and doing our best, right? And basically, regardless of where we're going to try and make the money, if the story is genuine and Pixar focusing on emotion, and connection, no matter what culture we grew up in around the entire world, that connects with our hearts, and that will really push the IP, and that can be basically just camouflaged into whatever specific culture or market that we want to try and make money in, I guess. So anyways, just a couple thoughts on the side.
Do you also want to take up this question that I had right now, Brad, about,
if the other guys want to hop into that, okay. I'll think about it too.
Amol?
Okay. Yeah. So I think, the OTT, obviously, the rapid growth of the OTT, and also accelerated by the pandemic because of the kids are all at home. I think it has changed the content production landscape around the world, not kind of in India. I mean, in India, I think there is a significant increase in local content production, but we, because we experience this globally. There is a greater demand for a wider range of niche audience-based content dealing with diverse, nuanced, and complex themes. So I think the 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 things are, the themes are also changing. In kids content, there is a greater focus on values such as diversity, gender equality, and inclusivity. In the past, it was all, terms you use at a very higher level, but not really in the content. But today, especially in the international content, the educational, interactive, in all that, kind of areas. So these kind of values are already, kind of built in. If you really go to BBC, or if you really go to any larger companies, if there is no diverse, ethnicity, and also if there is no gender equality, and if there is no inclusiveness in your stories, then there is a big chance that they will not commission it. So it's all now becoming very, very important. Then globally also there is a greater trend towards co-viewing, where elders and kids watch entertainment content together. So I think these are all, kind of providing a quite a large opportunity to produce family targeted animation programs.
Yes.
So I think, I mean, at least in the immediate future, I don't think the current surge in terms of demand in content, animated content, is going away.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Umang?
Yeah, I mean, the OTT, it has opened up a lot of opportunities, I would say. For animation industry, it is definitely, there are a lot of different topics which we wouldn't even imagine, could be shown earlier. But now, with the, it's not only about, there's an audience for every age group, and that is the beauty of it. If it is just a matter of how we can bring up that content for everyone. Like there are people right now, we are globally connected, so everyone has their own way of. We probably wouldn't have seen any anime before.
Yeah.
Right? We are like, the upbringing as an artist was more of a traditional animation. But then there is a story. When we mature, eventually, whatever the age of any individual or the audience, but they like that story. That's why that content is so good. And OTT has opened up that avenue. Like it's okay. I mean, we can go on and see a particular content. Like now, my daughter, the kind of animation content she looks at it, and she tells me that there is, see, this is what it is, Baba. Yeah, and that gives me an idea. I feel the joy you just said, that when it hits, within your family, that the profession you are in, and that is what they like. This is what it is. See how they have done that. Maybe a content or that particular, that IP could be, sports driven. Who would have imagined that?
Absolutely.
A content, an IP with the sports, and everyone can watch it. Like the age is irrelevant, and that is the space we are in. It is just like, as long as in India, it is just, we are just one show away, where we'll, then the floodgates will open. Is what I'm really hoping for that. As long as animation is concerned.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful.
How about yourself, Danny?
I was about to ask that. Right?
I don't have much to add to this one, so I won't be pulling it back again. But I would love to hear yours.
I am so thrilled that this dream is happening while I'm alive. This has been a dream. Primarily because I grew up with a crazy father that wanted to tell animated films way back in the 1980s. He was probably one of the craziest guys that went to Annecy with some artwork in 1984. So my entire upbringing has been, when is this going to happen? When is it's not just about individuals, but when as a country we are able to be proud about what we produce. It's a collective thing that we go out there and we say we as a country, because every time I walk in the West, we are looked at as an outsourcing body. And it's great. It's created jobs and I respect it. There's nothing wrong with it. And a lot of people continue to do that because that's sustenance. You need to sustain yourself. But I really feel like I want to be that bridge. And I'm so excited to say that that's the thing that makes me the happiest, to connect, to relate, to put our stuff out there and say, we did it, whether it's an individual or not. I think India needs to take pride collectively with the work that we put out there personally. Brad, you've become half Indian. I'm sorry, because this group is taken over. But I think my happiness on personally is I'd love to see my IP travel to the world. I think we all do. The OTT kind of, on one side, the exciting thing is it's there, and as you said, that one person is in charge of greenlighting your show needs to really believe in you and believe in the vision that you carry and say, yes, I trust you, because it's at the end of the day, for them, it's business. As much as I want to call it diversity and woman, blah 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 blah, at the end of the day, it always comes back to business. So I keep that challenge, I think, is something that I have to overcome. Challenge wise, I feel like you have to get rejected a lot. There's almost like rejection is a part of your daily life. And I just have started to become more zen about it, and to say, like, earlier I would get highly emotional, and now I'm just like, oh, glad you rejected my project, which means I'm going one step closer to somebody saying yes to my project. So I've kind of turned my challenge into an opportunity kind of a thing. So I'm learning, as I said. So that's basically where I sit with that question.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
Thanks. Brad?
That's what, when I meant, that the struggle which an individual has to go through, because it's not going to be easy when you have to, put it across. Like, so I can totally relate to it.
So, go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, because I haven't created my own, like, world-renowned IP yet or anything like that, I can't really answer that question specifically. However, my very first project out of school before I got into the industry was basically doing a couple short films, one specifically in Africa, in Tanzania. And the whole project was just to go there. What's it called? It was called Yoeli, basically, back in the day. But essentially, it's just a half-hour, think like 2D Calvin and Hobbes type animated film, which was kind of flash animated with a bit of CG in there. And I got to co-direct it with a tiny team in Tanzania, East Africa, and just spend a year driving into the jungle and just wherever, like sketching and really understanding the culture in Swahili. And it really is along the lines of what we're talking about, which that only happened in the last 20 years, right? And that was already 20 years ago. But the more and more that our content is being globally shared now, and technology is allowing us to not only travel to and from these companies, but I'm meeting the three of you right here and right now, and we're like in all different areas across the world, including a whole, audience from India. So it's really incredible to see that these ideas can be really shared, and just kind of, I do strongly believe that story is just beautiful in its own way within whatever environment, India, Africa, North America, it's something beautiful that can be shared, and it's really exciting to see where we're headed as a, VFX age, I guess, and whatnot.
I'm kind of running out of questions. You guys have anything, or you want to
No
talk about?
question, but I just wanted to, probably add a few cents. I mean, Wani, when we started the studio in '99, our studio was headed by a Disney veteran. So what he did is he basically put together, I think, around 30 people. We created a concept department here. Okay, from
I
day
know,
one,
Bill. Yeah,
concept department. Yeah, Bill. So we created a concept department and around 30 people, and these are people, are top class people. So from a creative perspective and their personal standing perspective, they are gems. They are selected. We probably created, I don't know, maybe 50 different properties, but I can tell you that none have ever seen light
Bill.
of the world. Okay, and we probably spent a couple of $1 million out of it. So, I mean, obviously, my background is finance. Initial days I had no clue what we are doing, but then finally, when we realized that the real problem is that they're artistically great people. I mean, they were given an instruction to come up with concepts. So they basically come up with concepts which are closer to their heart and which are kind of good. But the one key element which was totally missing is they didn't know who the audience is and what is the kind of market is. So finally, what happened is, as I told you, by the time it after 2 years, the company realized that none of this is kind of going anywhere.
Relatable. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it is in any kind of problem in the artistic, kind of way and all. So if you are really talking about a short film, and if it can be achieved by the artist by himself, it is not a
Yeah.
problem, right? You create it, you put it in YouTube, everybody will see it, blah blah blah. But if you're really talking about a larger, a television series or a feature film which need to be produced by others, which you are basically risking other people money,
Yeah.
then you definitely need to understand who you are telling the story to,
Yeah.
right? Because otherwise, you are basically, yes, you probably will be happy that your story coming into the life, but you are basically making a lot of other people at a big risk. And we know each other, that we know the story of people who, great creative people, who basically risking even their livelihood and their home to create stuff, and then finally they are struggling to get the market, right? That is not, unfortunately, the world work, right? If you actually plan it, and this is, as Vani rightly mentioned, I think we definitely need to train. I mean, I don't think there is any dearth of top level creative talent in our country. I don't believe. I think we are the best. Okay, what is lacking is exposure. So they
Yeah.
need to understand. They need to be taught. They need to be taken. They need to be told that, okay, it's a very collaborative process. It is not my way is highway. You need to really work with talents. So if you wanted to go, you go with a really known talent. 2 3 times you work with him, you get the job next time. So I think there is a way you will be able to do that, and when you really go through that, and in Western market, one great thing I like about America and Western market is they are very organized, and best practices, and the whole industry is of best practices, even for investors. There are things like bonding, insurance, and all. It will basically mitigate my low, downside risk in a big way. So
IP
I think there's a
creation.
lot to learn. There's a lot to learn from those kind of places, how this is all being done. And once we go through that process, I think this will be much smoother, much easier. You will see a lot of these kind of things, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I believe that is probably the best way we should go to. And we just definitely we need to make our creators aware of these processes, proper processes, so that they will be more successful.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay. I think that was a great advice, even for all of us in this panel, to
Yeah.
say, there's so much
Definitely.
learning, and I'm big because one is the creative brain and one is like the financial brain, and they have to, if you're not that, then get a partner that helps you with that, or get a producer that helps you with that. But even as a creator personally today, and writing my own IP and producing my own IP, I'm beginning to understand the rules and the foundations of do's and don'ts, like, okay, you can't just trust everybody. You got to learn how to do it right, because no one is going to take care of you or protect you. You have to protect yourself, and you have to take care of yourself. And that's the truth about IP creation. We have about 8-ish minutes. My thing, there's one question that Krishnaveni just posted here. What is your organization doing differently to protect or produce the IP?
While the other two gentlemen think about this, I'm going to do what I did last time. I think both of what Jaya and Vanny just touched on, I think it's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's the balance between like creative and the market basically that you're creating stuff for, right? So it's just one of those situations where it is a little tricky because me being the other end, because I'm more the creative artist that's like, working on the spot, is I've seen in past businesses be taken over by purely just financial thinking people, right? And because I come from a financial thinking father, this is where he was completely financial and I was completely artistic. I can really understand the different dynamics there, right? And the thing is, I've seen studios being pushed just to make money, just working for the content that will make the biggest dollars and the biggest, bank account, and lose so much creative talent along the way. So yes, it's about somehow finding that happy medium, that ability to have that strategic plan, but be able to protect the artists while doing it along the way. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, Brad. Jaya.
I think, we have a number of ways we basically create our IP. So we have our own development division, which basically creates their own ideas, and then those ideas will be taken for market testing, and then if it finds some interest in the marketplace, then you do further redevelopment, and then finally it will go to the market. A couple of other things, because we also understood the overall market. So one of the strategy which we adopt is we basically go and work with the top creators in the world, and that I think is a much easier way for us to really take the projects to the market. For example, we are currently working with a gentleman named Keith Chapman. Keith Chapman created the Bob the Builder and the Paw Patrol, right? So when you really go with those kind of people, then the acceptance from the broadcasters and the OTT platforms are very high, and our ability to go to market and go to fruition is very high. Another thing is also you can go and do with big brands. I have been working with a writer, R.L. Stein, who is very famous. He actually Goosebumps. So when I first optioned 9 books from him, Disney US was very immediate to come on board, and then Universal Studio came on board to distribute. So I'm currently producing a movie called Zombie Town, which is again an R.L. Stein movie. So these kind of very successful books, and franchises, it's very easy for you to kind of do that. Then some of the other things is converting games. Again, game franchises. So we are currently working on a game called Zombie Catchers, which is a 10-year-old game, which is still number in the top 10 chart in Europe. So I think we go after kind of known brands, but not animation brands, other brands, and then we basically kind of take them to animation. So all of this really worked very, very well for us. Of course, we always also have our own ideas, we try to push as well. But I think, as a company, when people understand that you have 5 top class brands you are representing, then they are more open for your original idea as well. This is all, perception. So that perception you
I
need
mean,
to.
that's your journey, right, Jaya? What you're trying to say is that this is the journey that we took as Toons
Yeah,
Animation,
absolutely.
and
As a
that's
company.
basically, yeah, as a company,
Yeah.
that's been your vision, or the company's vision. Thank you, Jaya. What about you, Amog?
Yeah, I mean, from company's perspective, like it is really important that you are working with right people. Uh, be creative, be the business aspect of it, but uh, that gelling well with the creative and the business aspect of it is really important, especially when you are creating, because you never know where it will take you. So it all comes to that. And in all eventuality, it is also when we are protecting IP, we are protecting a unique idea could be. So there are certain protocols need to be followed. It could be NDA. It's as simple as that. But right now we are living in a virtual world. That makes this more pronounced. So we have to be careful when we are, this could be a unique, like the pandemic and everything is the world, the way they have responded. But people did not know, how it will go once we will be on virtual world. We are working as a company or as an individual, you are working on your own unique or creative idea. That needs to be protected. So that is where we are kind of, there are some best practices which it's a global standard, but it is more important. It is as important as you are working with the client. It is for your own co-production or your own idea. You need to be very sincere and serious about it, vigilant about it, I would say.
Got it.
Since we only have a minute left, Vanny, take it away. Answer your question.
Well, for me, I think as a small development boutique, my goal is to focus on the polishing and presenting, and connecting the ideas together in a way that they can translate. When we as a small studio kind of come together and say, here, I've got a slate of ideas, then the thing is that it's not that everything on your slate is going to move forward. There's going to be one thing on your slate that's going to move forward. And you never know that something, like for me personally, something that I pitched 3 years ago might come back 5 years later and say, hey, we kind of like that idea. And because right now we don't have a show like that, have you done any further development on it? And I'll be like, yeah. So I think as an individual who's running a very small boutique, what I would primarily kind of sustain myself. One, of course, I need to multitask. That's what I'm really, really good at. When I'm stuck on one creative idea, I need the other project to take me forward so I can keep jumping between my projects. So I'm always on the go, and it keeps me happy. But development takes a lot of time and process. So kind of having that understanding and educating yourself to say you're in it for the long run. So have that, have that patience, and know that create your slate of ideas. Don't invest in one thing and one thing alone. Like that's my biggest takeaway. I think even Jaya was saying the same thing. Something that they created way back in 1999. I would love to take a look at that library today, because there might be something beautiful over there that can be recrafted. In fact, I've done that with Jaya on one of his projects. But there is so much of that. I think as a person, I feel like we really need to understand if you're doing for preschool, what's your story engine like? If I'm writing a feature film, I need to really understand what my connection is and who my audience is. So those are the things more creatively that I'm looking at, but also getting a lot of great consultants and advisors are available today, at an email away, where they're willing to consult with you and give you that, which didn't exist 20 years ago. So I'm excited for where we're all heading.
Timing is everything, right?
Yes. And you wait patiently for something to happen and stay healthy and happy, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you wanna fill in, or you wanna jump back to the previous question?
I think our time's up here.
Yes.
Well, we can. All
Yeah.
right then.
But
It was
if we
wonderful
still
talking with
have
all
to
of
continue,
you.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Vani. Thank you very much, Amok.
Thank
Brad.
you. Thank you.
Nice
Yeah,
Thank
talking
you,
to
thank
you.
you for
everyone.
meeting all of
Bye.
you.
Bye. Have a
Have a great
wonderful
weekend.
2022.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.